Hello, my name is Damian. I'm a developer at Booking.com. I work in our reliability engineering group, focusing mainly on infrastructure monitoring. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the conference, and I'd like to thank the organizers for organizing the conference and for inviting me to give this closing keynote. Now, normally I give fairly technical talks, but not today. Today I'm going to talk about community, which seems to be a common topic for conference keynotes. I am much more comfortable giving technical talks. On the other hand, I'm an extrovert, so I could probably stand up here and talk about chickens for 30 minutes, and that might be fun. So, I do not need this. So if you've ever read the Golang subreddits, you've probably seen my username. If you have tweeted something with #Golang, you've probably interacted with me. And so I suppose that's why I was asked to stand up here and talk to you about community, because I am a visible member of the community. I do things. I suppose it helps that I'm an extrovert. But I didn't start out saying, I'm going to do all these things for the Go community. I just kind of fell into it. So what is community? Well, standard for these kind of talks is you ask Wikipedia. And apparently, Community is an American television sitcom created in 2009 on NBC. But if you read further, you find out that it's about a group of people who come together to form a study group, and their shared experiences and their shared values. And I figured that was a much better definition of community, so I'm gonna go with that one. So do Gophers have community? Well, back to Wikipedia. Gophers are solitary outside of the breeding season. This, by the way, is why there's no collective noun for a group of gophers. Although Michael Jones on the mailing list has suggested the wonderful phrase, a concurrence of gophers. So now everybody has seen this graph, right? Our concurrence is growing because our community is growing. And our community is growing because lots of people are interested in learning about Go. Lots of different backgrounds, lots of different languages, both computer languages and spoken languages, different levels of knowledge, different levels of experience. Some self-taught, some have formal training, different areas of focus, and different priorities. Now, naturally, this means the makeup of our community is changing too. And this is concerning for some. Something drew us all to Go in the first place. And we want to ensure that the things that brought us here, the things that we enjoy, don't change. Now, this is not going to be a talk about codes of conduct. The code of conduct, there have been a number of those already. The code of conduct that I personally try to live by is be excellent to each other. And if the one-sentence version of yours is sufficiently different, it's probably worth asking why. So let's talk about the Go community. But can we even talk about the Go community? I mean, I can certainly talk about the Go communities that I am a part of. The Gophers at my work, the Amsterdam Go community, the Slack and Twitter and Reddit Go communities, maybe IRC in the mailing list. But is there a Go community? So Jason Buberel, the product manager for the Go team at Google, presented the results of a community survey. And it's kind of interesting numbers because they seem to be at odds with the fact that we know that the most popular downloads of Go are Windows installers from users in China. So clearly the Windows using developers in China are not talking loudly on the GoNuts mailing list, or Twitter, or Reddit, or any of the other places that we tried to promote this survey to get a good understanding of what people are using it for. Similarly, Google Trends shows the immense popularity of the Golang search term in China. Before there was Docker and Kubernetes, the most popular Go repository on GitHub was a book called Building Web Applications in Go, and it was only available in Chinese. And there was even a blog post trying to answer the question, why is Go so popular in China? So, one thing to come out of the Go for China conference in Shanghai earlier this year was the immense scale that some of these Chinese users were running at. The rest of us hadn't really heard anything about this. Qihoo 360 was running 10 billion messages a day with 200 million real-time connections, through Go services. Baidu was running 100 billion requests a day through their front end that was all through Go. And we hadn't even heard about really any of these companies. There was just this kind of feeling that Go was taking off in China. And then we saw this, clearly huge Go community in China, but one that has very little in common with the rest of us. Which brings up another interesting point, which is, who are the rest of us? Well, we can very easily say all the Gophers outside of China. We could also say, the communities I mentioned earlier, the mailing list, IRC, Twitter, Reddit, people who come to conferences, viewers like you. So here are some numbers. On the G+, Google+, there's about 20,000 people in, the Go community there. The mailing list has about 17,000 people. Reddit has about 16,000 people. GitHub has 14,000 users who have at least one repository whose main language is Go. Now, obviously, these are not all independent groups. There's going to be some overlap. But here's an interesting question. How many people are writing Go code but are not subscribed to the mailing list? Or how many people are writing Go code but don't read the subreddit? Are these people part of our community? Are they Gophers? Well, they're Go developers. Is there a difference? Well, our community needs to be accessible to everyone. Here's another graph. This is the rule of thumb for participation in internet communities. So it's the 1-9-90 rule. So we have 1% of people are creating content, 9% of people are contributing to discussions around the content, and 90% of people are lurking. So for us, we have 1% of people are writing blog posts, 9% of people are commenting on Reddit and on Hacker News, and 90% of people are lurking. So that's a lot of people we hear nothing from. And I find it hard to believe that the 10% of people who are active are sampled uniformly at random from the entire population. So that means we know the Gopher activity that we see online is not the entire picture. And this doesn't even include dark matter developers who aren't involved in the community at all, not even to lurk. So this means that when we make decisions, we have to make decisions that don't just reflect what we see, which is skewed, but ones that try to make sense for the cases we haven't even considered, that we don't know about. And this is what Russ Cox meant by do less to enable more in his GopherCon keynote. So, it's obviously hard to quantify the needs of dark matter Gophers, but they're still writing code. They still consider themselves part of the Go community. In fact, these people you don't see or hear from probably make up the majority of users of Go. They have an impact on adoption. They have an impact on mindshare. We might call them the subconscious mind of the programming community. But of course, we don't even know how many of them there are out there. We don't really know what they're using Go for. What do you do when most of your community is invisible? We're not getting bug reports from them. We're not getting patches from them. How skewed is our view of the world without them? How skewed is our view of the world without more insight into what's happening with Go in China? So, what do Go programmers want from their community? And luckily, there's some research on this topic. Two common motivators are meeting like-minded people and finding great content. And now, those are, to be fair, those are pretty generic reasons. And they apply offline, too. Why are you here today? Maybe your company sent you here as a perk, and you don't really care. But, it's also possible But probably it was one or perhaps both of these. You want to meet some other Gophers, and you want to learn some things. We like people who are like us. This is a principle from the social psychology of influence. When you meet some Gophers, you already have something in common. You already have a connection. Since they like Go, it's likely they share your beliefs on what being a Gopher entails. They're part of your tribe. But now we're also a technical community. We want a place where we can get help, where we can learn, where we can ask questions without being made to feel stupid. Recommendations for packages or solutions on the best way to solve a problem. A place to discuss Go-related content, upcoming changes in the language, or other packages or bugs. So what is it that we believe? I mentioned Gopher beliefs. Well, these are some of the code-based ones, right? We believe that our code should be run through GoFunked. We believe in checking errors. We believe that your code should be GoVet clean, that it should pass the race detector. It should be, GoLint should have only small annoying things that you don't really care about there, but otherwise the code in general should follow effective Go. It should follow the code review comments wiki page. The code should be documented. It should be indexed on godoc.org so that you can find it when you need it. Your package should be go-gettable. You should limit the amount of times you use the empty interface. There are social ones as well. We believe that simple is better than complex. We believe that performance matters. We believe that costs are visible, and so a lot of magic tends to hide costs, and so we tend not to like that. This is the culture that we want to preserve. These are the values that brought many of us to Go in the first place. These are the ideas that we want to propagate to newcomers. To some extent, this is the underlying Gopherness we want to keep in the community, right? And this is what we're scared of losing. We want the community to respect these beliefs because that's what's important to us. The Go community is seeing an influx of new people, and many of them are trying to bring their own development habits to ours. Go's eternal September, if you like. So let's talk about change. Francesc gave a great talk at .go last year on accents, both in spoken languages and computer languages. French with a Spanish accent, Go with a Java accent, or Go with a Python accent. So what does that mean for us? Well, consider then BBC English, received pronunciation. The equivalent for Gophers would be the accent of Mountain View, right? The proper way to speak, the proper way to code. Or perhaps Murray Hill, New Jersey, if you want to go back a little further into Plan 9 world. Now, there's an interesting Canadian term that applies here, and it's called the cultural mosaic. And this is the mix of ethnic groups and languages and cultures that coexist within a society. And we use it when discussing government policy on multiculturalism. It stands in opposition to the melting pot metaphor that's often used in American discussions of cultural assimilation. For a while, the Go community's ideal was cultural assimilation. Write code like the standard library. Idiomatic code above all else. We wanted people to conform. You must write code this way. You must drink this Kool-Aid. As Russ Cox also pointed out in his GopherCon keynote, the Go community needs to exist outside of Google, doing things that Google isn't doing. We need diversity. We need ideas, different backgrounds. This is how we become a technical cultural mosaic, where our differences contribute to the whole rather than dividing it. We're all exploring still. We don't yet know the best way to do everything. Our current ideals are really, this is the best way we've found to do it so far. And many of these best ways reflect the experience of the Go team. But as we've seen with vendoring, living inside the Google bubble doesn't always produce solutions that satisfy those outside. At the same time, it's important to understand why we do these things. Otherwise, you end up doing things out of habit, even though they don't make sense anymore. For example, buying a roast from the butcher and cutting off the small end before putting in the roasting pan to cook. My mother always did it this way. One day you call your mom and you find out it's because her roasting pan was too small. Different people have different needs. I have a bigger roasting pan than my mom. Let's take Martini. By any measure, this is a very successful project. There are 7,400 GitHub stars, there's an active community, lots of contributors, both to Martini itself and to the ecosystem. It's used in lots of projects. Yet, many people look down on it because it's not idiomatic. They point to the blog post that Jeremy wrote disclaiming his own project and introducing Negroni. But clearly there is something there. And are we really going to tell people no true Gopher uses Martini? These people are just trying to get stuff done. They have different priorities. We have to accept that there will not be one true way for people. There will be different, I don't want to say factions, but sub-communities, Gopher towns. Some will follow the shoe, and some will follow the gourd. People are going to be building packages that are non-idiomatic. And as we saw with Martini, the success of that project led people to create more frameworks that achieved similar things with less magic, with a more Mountain View accent. And our community is stronger for it. So I think we should treat things like GoFumped and error checking as oaths in our citizenship ceremony, or perhaps less formally, our shibboleths. But there's still a lot of leeway for people to experiment with, and Go's success depends on them doing so. So how do you actually improve Go and turn it from a group of programmers into a community? I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm responsible for and why I chose to do them. Each time it was, here's something I can do to make the world a little bit better for other Gophers. So, Reddit. At this point, I'm almost certainly the top submitter to the Reddit, our Golang. Why did I start? Well, internet points. So, not the most altruistic reason, I agree. But, why keep going? Well, I always read a lot of news sites, and I wanted our Golang to be one of those news sites that I could keep going back to and keep seeing fresh content. But I seem to be seeing Go stories on other places first. And it was really easy for me to take those stories and just drop them into the Reddit submit box, and now other people could see them too. An active subreddit is valuable because it makes it clear that the community is doing things. If you visit a subreddit that has one post every couple days, the watering hole is dry. People aren't going to come back if there's nothing to read. By filling it with content, people do come back. They realize that one, stuff is happening, the content itself, and the more Gophers that are coming back, and now they're talking about it. And so now you have interesting stuff and people to talk to, and those are the two things that people look for in an online community. A subreddit filled with content satisfies both of the reasons people join communities, which is not surprising. So, Gopher vids. This is probably the clearest example of me really going out of my way to do something to improve the community, except that I didn't really want to do it. So Gopher vids is a website built with Bootstrap and Angular, and actually well beyond my front-end capabilities, that at the moment has more than 350 Go talks categorized by topic and speaker. I wanted a site like this to exist, and the easiest way to make that happen was to create it myself. I'd always hoped that somebody who actually knew how to build websites would come along and fix it up for me. And some people have contributed CSS cleanups or some JavaScript tweaks. But mostly it's me updating a JSON file by hand once in a while. However, to some extent, much like my Reddit submissions, this is taking something that I was doing anyway, scanning YouTube for Go videos to watch on my tablet while I did the dishes, and making that information more widely available in a more useful form. So if you want to watch videos on concurrency, or testing, or optimization, or all of Andrew's 30+ talks, you can watch them here. So, Twitter. I answer questions on the Golang hashtag. I'm a helpful person. Lots of people tweet questions, problems, whatever, tagged with Golang, shouting into the wind, basically. Most of the time, these are beginners who need help with something, or people looking for packages, but they haven't yet found Godoc's search feature, whatever. Surprisingly, I've also spent a lot of time suggesting to people that they don't switch to Go, or rather, trying to educate them and set expectations about what they're getting into. Why? Well, I don't want them coming in unhappy. In some senses, this is actually selfish too. If they're unhappy, they'll write angry blog posts that make it to the top of Hacker News and spawn another 200 comment thread where basically nobody wins. In 2012, Rob Pike wrote what has become one of our founding documents, Language Design in the Service of Software Engineering. In it, he delves into the reasons behind some of the design decisions in Go. I've probably sent this talk out 100 times to people asking on Twitter if they should learn Go. People have many different use cases, for their programming language, and it's important that they understand where Go is coming from. It might be trying to solve problems they don't have. Millions of lines of code, thousands of engineers, in which case some of the decisions might not make sense for their kind of work. People have different beliefs about what a programming language should provide. And once you know what those beliefs are, then you can find a language that matches those beliefs, ranging from the heavily dynamic, liberal languages, to borrow Steve Yegi's terminology, to the extremely conservative ones, like Haskell. A lot of flame wars on the internet are because people disagree about the right way to do things, which is to say they are on different ends of the spectrum. They believe their programming languages should provide them different kinds of things. So when somebody coming from the JavaScript community or the Rails community says, I want to learn Go, I send them Rob Pike's talk. Then they can decide, is this the language for me? And that is valuable. So the last section to a good keynote is a call to action. The A/B tested Buy Now button at the bottom of your web page next to your shopping cart. And this is it. So, what is it that we want? Go has a large community, and there's no evidence that its growth is going to slow anytime soon. There are lots of benefits to a large community. More packages, more edge cases hit in testing, more resources in general, more user groups, more blog posts, more conferences. However, we have to avoid living in an echo chamber. As environments and priorities change, we want to be able to recognize that and take a critical look at our beliefs, at the core tenets of how we program. Write code. This for me is important for two reasons. The first, again, is kind of selfish. I enjoy writing code. I write a lot of code, but I also enjoy having the code I need already written. Perl is still a very powerful force based almost entirely on how many packages and how many different packages are available on CPAN. Python 2 has a huge number of packages. Separate out the internal business logic from the reusable part of your code, which will probably make your code better anyway, and push it up to GitHub. Write documentation, get it listed on GoDoc, so others can find it. And not just, as I do, interesting algorithms and research papers that I find, but parsers for obscure file formats, API clients for web services. Second, we learn about Go and how to use it by writing actual code. Most of what we know about the best way to write Go code comes from Google, but that's only because they already have millions of lines of Go. Millions of lines of Go that interacts with their systems, their infrastructure, their workflows. They've well explored the areas of Go that are important to them. But what about the areas that are important to you? There's lots of ground to cover before we can say we really understand Go. Now, we've heard a number of times, the language is done. Now we need to see how it works, to see how people use it, and to see what people build. As I mentioned, there are two reasons people join online communities: to find like-minded people and to find great content. Right now, a lot of Go content is, I wrote Hello World in Go, and this is how it compares to Haskell. We need more about real-world Go, content written by Gophers, but not just for other Gophers, but for a wider audience as well. Share your success stories with the world, not just your neighbors. And share your failures too, because Go is not the right solution to every problem. One way we improve Go is by knowing where it doesn't work. Maybe it's just missing documentation, or maybe it's actually missing libraries. As a developer, listen to bug reports. And be patient. Remember that not every bug report you get will be written by a native English speaker, or even somebody who speaks English at all. Or even by somebody who knows how to write a good bug report. File bugs yourself, even if you don't have a fix. A known documented bug is better than an undocumented bug. Leave code better than you found it. If you're going to use a library and GoVet or GoLint, flag some issues, fix them, and file a pull request, even if it's just documenting the exported symbols. Finally, run the betas and the release candidates. We need to find more testers with odd use cases. Go 1.5 was released on Wednesday, and on Thursday, somebody found a pretty nasty code generation bug. The way we keep upgrades painless is by having the pre-releases exercised with lots of different code bases, lots of different server configurations, lots of different production workloads. The more bugs we can find before the final release version is tagged, the more bugs real users don't have to wait months for a fix in a point release to emerge. Real users who might have put their career on the line saying that Go was the right tool for the job. And be involved. I mean, this is basically what I want to encourage you to do. Monday, while I was busy procrastinating on this talk, I saw a library that I thought would make a great example for how to use Dmitry Vyukov's GoFuzz tool, which you should all be using, by the way. I was hoping somebody else would do it, and I kind of said as much on Twitter and on Reddit, but nobody else took the bait. So in the end, I signed up to Medium and banged it up myself. Sometimes the best way to get something done is to do it yourself. And so far, I've found that it's very true I've found that to be the way with building community. This all really boils down to, be involved. Whenever you think, I need this thing, somebody else probably does too. And you can make it happen. Even if it's just starting with some markdown on a GitHub gist, you can help build things. Small steps. And that's what I want to leave you with. I just fell into doing community stuff, doing small things I thought would be helpful to other people. And you can too. Small steps make a difference, help people grow, respect our differences, and stay humble. Thank you.